Perfect.
Welcome to Predictions 2022, delivered to you by LinkedIn Live. I'm Cliff Watkin from Circle Strategies, and I'm joined today with Mike Deanne from Wallit. My goal today is to deliver timely topics to you in 15 minutes so that you can bring these digestible and impactful details back to your organization. Sit back, relax, eat your lunch, answer your emails, and keep an ear to us. Hopefully, you enjoy our conversation today. So welcome, Mike. I'm glad you're able to join us today. Mike's been building and running employer-sponsored businesses for long time.
Couple decades.
Look, it's not showing.
No.
That's really, really great.
Thank you, Cliff.
At Circle Strategies, we have been following lots of issues that have been going on in the last year and a half due to Wallit. And these issues have caused us to come up with three very important questions that we want to talk to you about today. We have been hit with many things that are going on around us: COVID, international global issues, political issues, employee resignations, all of the issues that leaders of organizations are having to deal with today. And so we started at the beginning of COVID to have a series of workshops where people can join and give their feedback in a very safe, supportive environment, whether you're a leader or whether you're an employee. And we were able to gather a lot of this data and synthesize it over the last year and a half. And from that, we feel that there are three really important imperatives that leaders of organizations should be focusing on, and specifically focusing on them for 2022.
Let's get into them.
We are ready. So there has been a shift in the organization from what we heard over the past year and a half, that the employee engagement in an organization needs to be recognized in a different way. Employees are asking for leaders of organizations to recognize their employee experience. What have they gone through for the last year and a half that has changed and shifted them to focus on what's my employee experience and how can I be successful at it? So I've asked Mike to join us today because of his experience, the work that he has done in the many companies that he has run. And we're going to share with you three really important questions that we feel are valuable for leaders of organizations to take back with them today and use as ways to help them manage for 2022. We hope that you can take these questions back with you and bring them to your organization and hopefully use them to manage some of the difficulties for 2022. So this year, after we got all of our information from the surveys and the workshops, the first question that came to mind that was really important was, what key metric is your organization using to lead the business strategic initiatives and having successful employee performance? Tell us some of your experiences, Mike.
Well, I think that's an important question. I think every organization's used to defining key metrics, and it really depends on the maturity and the size of the company, where they are in their life cycle. If you're an early stage company, you're probably thinking about growth initiatives, whereas you're a more established company, you're thinking more about customer service. And there should probably be one North Star metric and then some underlying KPIs that are driving to that. But I think what's important to remember is, as in the context of employee experience, is the shift from the way we typically thought around employee engagement, which is fundamentally a top-down approach to driving the purpose of this question, tying business strategic objectives to employee performance. So if you think about employee engagement as a top-down initiative, whereas the employee experience is actually a bottoms-up, designing an experience around the employee so that they can drive employee performance, to achieve those strategic outcomes. And I think that that's really important, to be very thoughtful about the metrics that you choose and to keep it super simple. Have 3, no more than 4 initiatives based on where you are in your business cycle.
Now, specifically, when you're talking about business initiatives, I'm thinking we need to grow revenue by 5%. We need to acquire this company and integrate it into our organization. We need to change our marketing strategy, or we want to explore a new product for this year. That's what I'm thinking about business strategic initiatives. And what I'm also thinking about when you say employee performance, I'm saying meeting those business initiatives and delivering on them. You can have an organization that produces the best printers with the lowest error rate, and everybody being really successful. So they've met their business strategic initiative, but the employees think the company sucks because their employee experience is so bad.
Yeah, well, I think maybe what you're, if I really think about the experiences I've had in the past, most metrics are designed around the outcomes. Those are lagging indicators, lagging metrics. And I think when we're talking about things like employee engagement, employee experience, those are more leading indicators. And then it could be a whole host of things. You're probably measuring, the audience is probably thinking about retention and turnover, and they're thinking about, like you use the example of sales. What are the things that we can do to increase performance by enhancing the employee experience, and thinking about the metrics that are driving specifically around the employee experience?
The studies today show that organizations, most recently in the last year or two, have had much improved success in delivering on those strategic initiatives if their employee experience is really great.
I think that's really important. Then you think about defining employee experience by different pockets, because you think about all the different touch points for an employee across the life cycle, from onboarding to departure, ongoing everyday moments as it relates to their physical workspace, as it relates to the technology and tools they're using around that, to the cultural aspects of it. Designing metrics around each one of those elements is really important.
And COVID brought that to light because everybody went home. They produced and led the organization through such a difficult time, and they worked in a totally different environment. And so their perspective has completely changed.
It's like a new lease on life. It's like a reset button, giving people permission to really design these experiences around tying those business strategic outcomes to employee performance, which is really what it's all about.
Now, the second question is really important based on what we just set the perspective on. And that is, who's responsible for delivering that metric? In an organization, historically, leaders of the organization have been responsible for delivering it. They pass that initiative out to their management team, and the management team is asking employees to deliver on that metric.
And it's about a 100-year-old strategy, right?
It has, and specifically, it isn't working anymore. People are leaving, like we have heard about the Great Resignation. Employees are frustrated with the culture. They're frustrated with how that old philosophy is not working for them to support them in their employee performance. So I think that the organization needs to focus on who is responsible for delivering on this metric.
Yeah.
What is your experience?
I'm going to just keep putting this up here. Actually, it's, this little Fisher-Price framework around what we're trying to get at, right? Top down versus bottoms up equals employee performance.
It's a very simple formula. And I think what you're getting at is that it's a shared responsibility where it has to have some sort of executive sponsor. Typically the CEO would be the executive team. But then there's probably one person in the organization that is specifically responsible and accountable for driving those employee experience initiatives inside their organization. But it's really important to mention that it's a shared experience across all the different departments, not just HR, the people function, finance, IT, maybe facilities, to go back to that physical workplace space, could be legal, having that shared. And then the last element of this, maybe the third element, is having it be championed by everybody, which goes back to the original question, is what are those metrics, the North Star metric, and have that cascade down throughout the organization or across, or however you think about your business.
To tie it to their performance.
To tie it back to the outcomes that you want for your business.
Exactly. Right. Now, what I struggle with is that we have seen this already over the decades. There is typically a VP of HR who leads the human side of the organization. And that person is responsible in many regards as a shared responsibility to tie performance to the metric. My question to you is, should compensation be tied to the individual who's responsible for delivering this metric?
It goes back to the first part of the question, which is it's shared. So therefore, I think the short answer is yes. But I think everybody should have something within their performance objectives annually, quarterly, monthly tied to this. It's why it's championed by everybody. Everybody feels collaborative as part of it. It's a cultural thing. It's a technology thing. So yes, I do. And I want to bring it back to a lot of the work that's been done of late. There's lots of research. There's lots of blog posts around the idea of comparing the employee experience to what we've done over the last couple of decades around the customer experience.
Exactly.
Right? There's positions. There's the head of customer experience, the head of, the VP and the manager of customer experience. So we're starting to see that now. I think that's going to be something that's going to manifest over the course of the next year, 10 years. And I think it's really important. It's a design exercise, very thoughtful, not reactive, but very proactive way around trying to be, the best organization that's taking care of their people and how you want to have that strategy come to life.
You and I have talked about that commonality in the terminology between customer experience and employee experience. And you said something very valuable when we talked about it. And that was the amount of effort organizations put in to designing the customer experience is nowhere near the amount of effort organizations put towards designing the employee experience.
It is. You think, there's the adage around how I'm just thinking about this now, is how expensive it is to acquire new customers versus retaining existing customers. Well, the same thing exponentially is into your talent, right?
125% of their salary.
Is that what it is? I believe it. It's probably even more than that. I bet you that's conservative. So I think this is really important. And again, for the people that are listening live and I'm sure this is something that they're thinking about. The question is, how do we do it? Like, what do we do? Right?
Exactly. And to support your message about the person driving the customer experience, we've already seen that in an organization structure recently with diversity, equity, and inclusion. Many organizations have hired a chief diversity officer. And I think what we're suggesting is that if an organization wants to be able to deliver on the business initiative and deliver on a really good employee experience to support employee performance, what about having a chief employee experience officer?
Yeah, again, it depends on the size of the organization, where they are in their business building cycle. It doesn't have to be a dedicated person. That's all they do. It could be a shared responsibility. But I think the point is to make this something that it's sponsored by the leadership team. It's championed by everyone in the organization, and people are actually accountable for driving the results throughout the organization. That's what creates a really exciting place to be, right?
Exactly.
Working on something that's bigger than ourselves.
Exactly. Even though you have a small little part, you're working on it for the bigger objective.
And it takes the transactional aspect of running a business out of the way. It's not that those aren't important. Those metrics aren't important, right? And who's responsible for delivering on those metrics, but having less transactional mentality and more of a relationship, collaborative mentality around the experiences, the point that we're trying to make.
Now, you have to also ask yourself, what skill set are we missing? If I'm the leader of the organization and I've recognized that, yes, we need to shift from employee performance, employee engagement to having a better employee experience, we've got lots of trusted advisors, our management team, consultants, whomever. What skill set does an organization need so that they can deliver on their employee experience in 2022?
That's a really hard one. And I really do think we lean on the experiences that we've all had around the customer experience, both online and offline digital technologies. I think that's a good place to start because we're not as far off as we think we are in terms of what skill sets we need. But then it could be anything. I think one big one that I see coming up a lot that I try to do throughout my experience with my team and in past is managing with empathy and compassion. I think to your earlier comment, how we've been through so much, I think leaders, and not just leaders, but almost every rank and file person needs to have better communication and listening skills, but they really need to think about how to develop that soft skill around compassion and empathy, which aren't the two. We could have a whole podcast on that, by the way.
Yeah.
And I also think that, I would imagine proficiency in technology, being open to experimenting new things, which isn't a skill set, but the skill set around using technology to A, automate workflows, and B, use data. And both of those things are not only from a transactional standpoint to streamline some of the workflows, to save time, save money, reduce cost, but it's really to help make better decisions. And the reason why I think this is important, not just because, we need to make this digital transformation happen for our employee experience, I think it's really around transforming the HR and finance functions, which had typically been back office functions, at least in my experience, where they kind of had this quasi-hybrid relationship between administration, operations, and strategy. Well, I think what we're seeing happen is there's been a shift, less operational, more, less administrative and more strategic as a business partner, and using technology to automate workflows and the use of data is really going to help accelerate that transformation to become that strategic partner to drive those people initiatives.
And when you have data, you can make really impactful decisions.
That's a skill set.
Absolutely.
And it's changing. So we re-up, we reskill, we upskill, we get new skills. And I think that that's a skill set that every organization has. It's got to be in everybody's performance.
To support your perspective on empathy, we heard a lot in the workshops that we hosted, I believe, that leaders, employees struggle with the lack of empathy leaders have in their management style. Whether you're the leader of the organization, the CEO, whether you're the manager of a team of customer service reps, whomever, empathy is something that historically in the workforce, we've never had to focus on. It's never been important. You come into work, you get your work done, and then you go home.
I love that. I actually, if you think about what we're talking about, metrics, driving it all the way through, the who's responsible, I bet you if you go back to that data, if you haven't done this already, that the complaints and the issues with empathy inside an organization are those that don't focus on the employee experience.
Right.
There has to be a line that you can draw to that and put that back in the metrics and make sure that, people, managers with compassion and empathy, I bet you're going to see better ROI. You're going to see all, up and to the right in terms of positive metrics.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Mike.
Sure.
Really appreciate your feedback and insight. Thank you all for joining us for Predictions 2022. We hope we were able to deliver some really impactful lessons around what leaders of organizations and managers of organizations should be focusing on. Our 3 questions will be available on our website along with our LinkedIn Live podcast, and we plan to be having more in the future. So thank you for joining us. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.